genuinely believe that Tyra Banks was so terribly hurt growing up in a modeling industry that was not ready to accept her beauty as being anywhere near the standard. That once she established herself as a top dog in the industry, she decided not to break any cycles, but to continue the victimization of young models. But this time, she was on top. So if you're not aware, Tyra Banks created America's Next Top Model in, I believe, 2005, and it was one of the biggest shows on television all throughout the early 2000s. The show promised young and aspiring models to have an opportunity to get exposure, makeovers, and priceless experiences working with world-renowned photographers. Each season, thousands of young models would audition, just desperately looking for an opportunity to prove themselves to Tyra and the judges. From the outside looking in, America's Next Top Model seemed like a great opportunity for any young model. It seemed like a really exciting experience, but beneath the surface, when you look a little closer, things were not quite as they seem. I genuinely believe that Tyra Banks found humor and pleasure in inflicting emotional distress on contestants. In one season, Tyra had a photo shoot challenge in which the contestants were made to switch races. Just from watching the scene, it's clear that a lot of these girls are very uncomfortable, but they go ahead and comply. Tyra had the fair-skinned models paint their skin and face very dark and had them in afro wigs. There was also children involved in this photo shoot, and the children would be the race that the model was representing. I think we all know what this is, and Tyra has spent years trying to explain this away, but this feels like a very intentional oversight. In another season, a contestant named Carity went hypothermic after being forced to do a photo shoot in a freezing cold pool. Carity expressed multiple times that it felt like there were pins and needles all over her body. Carity's concerns were ignored, and ultimately she had to be pulled out of this freezing cold pool while shaking uncontrollably. She was scolded for not speaking up sooner, but if you watch the scene, she was definitely making her concerns known. In another season, after a contestant named Tiffany was eliminated, she went around to her castmates, said her goodbyes, told them to keep their spirits high. She handled her elimination extremely gracefully, and this infuriated Tyra Banks. Tyra wanted to see Tiffany fall apart and cry like other contestants have when Tyra takes away the opportunity for them to potentially win America's Next Top Model. So when Tiffany handled the elimination with grace, Tyra hated that. Tyra screamed at and berated Tiffany on television for absolutely no other reason other than to humiliate and hurt her. Another contestant, Danny Evans, was made to feel ugly by Tyra when Tyra told her to her face that she would never become a model with a gap in her teeth. Danny did reluctantly agree to have her gap closed, and then she did go on to win season 6 of America's Next Top Model. But it always struck me as very strange that Tyra shamed Danny into getting her gap closed, but then why, when Chelsea came along a few seasons later, she wanted her to get her gap widened? Tyra told Chelsea that she would not become successful unless they accentuated the gap in her teeth. Chelsea agreed, and Tyra sent her out to a dentist where they would shave down each of her front 2 teeth in the center by 1 millimeter each. Luckily, Chelsea pulls this look off really well, but I just find it extremely hypocritical that Tyra, just a few seasons prior, would tell a contestant, you're not going to be successful unless you have no gap, and then a few seasons later, tell someone, you won't be successful unless you have a bigger gap. In another season, Tyra would go on to tell an openly gay contestant that they needed to tone down and not emphasize or bring attention to their sexual orientation in any way. And ironically, just 3 years after saying this on television, Tyra would go on to win a GLAAD award for LGBTQ representation and inclusion. In another season, a contestant named Kenya came to Tyra to let her know that a male model that they had been shooting with touched her inappropriately. Tyra brushed her off and blamed her for not taking enough control of the situation. And this would not be the end of Tyra being the villain in Kenya's story. During Kenya's season, she was constantly told to diet and to eat less because she was overweight and gaining weight. During a photo shoot challenge, the contestants were portraying the 7 deadly sins, and of course, Tyra assigned gluttony over to Kenya because of how much she liked to eat. It just blows my mind because look how petite this woman is. Like, In another season, a model approached Tyra expressing that a male model who she was supposed to be shooting with had made really offensive and hateful comments about her race. Tyra's only response was, "It's your job to keep the peace, and it's your job to figure out how to work together." I think Tyra had to have some kind of joy in traumatizing these contestants, from the makeovers to the fatphobic comments to the hostile environment. Even many of the fellow judges did not have anything nice to say about working with Tyra. Ex-supermodel Janice Dickinson even said Tyra was extremely hard to work with and she had no respect for anyone. And that's just her behavior from America's Next Top Model. Tyra has a whole entire career of diva, toxic behavior.
I feel like Tyra is surface level 1, and then everybody else just hides underneath her to just showcase her and just say, "This one, yay, she's so bad." But the whole industry, even the judges, remember, Taylor, Tyra, I meant, okay? Tyler was part of the judges. She was the host, basically. She represented the American Next Top Model. Okay? She was part of those things, but she was not the decision maker. The judges, okay? They talk like that. They were the one giving her instructions, and she also internalized it. She believes in it. She's part of the whole shenanigans, okay? And then she delivered what she already knew about the industry. She put an emphasis on their thoughts and feelings. They were just as horrible, the judges. I'm sorry. The minute you say that the judges felt that they was terrible too, and then you single out her and be like, she was the bad person, and the next American, no, all of them, from the photographers, from the judges, from the entire history of modeling, from the fact that the entire modeling industry is fatphobic, is all of these negative connotations, okay? She is that, and that is what they represented at that time. Times have changed now, okay? But it doesn't mean the metal industry has changed. They've just toned up or toned down certain things, but they haven't really changed like that enough. So I feel like this Tyler conversation is getting boring, but I get it because it's not emphasizing on the actual problems, just puts Tyler as the main villain in the story, because I don't really see her as the main villain, and I don't really think that she's the problem like that at all. I don't think that. Okay. So interesting when you think about it. Very interesting. So quite interesting.